Quinn Talon was bleeding from his butt. His rear end had just scraped hard against the asphalt as two bullies used their superpowers to throw him around like a rag doll. He examined his road rash through the hole in his torn pants. It was tender to his touch. The bullies raced over and wailed on him with punches and kicks as he curled into a protective ball. It made Quinn feel like the weakest person on Earth. To everyone else, it looked like he didn't have powers. And that was a big deal because everybody, and he meant everybody, on this planet had a superpower. If they didn't get it naturally, then they bought enhancements to give them powers. The bullies laughed. "You're such a weakling," his friend chuckled. "Defend yourself, loser." Quinn was helpless. The sun sapped his strength for some reason. Quinn screamed, "Get off of me!" The bullies laughed again, and one punched Quinn in the nose. Blood poured out of his nose and smeared across his face. Suddenly, Quinn felt a surge of strength, and he pushed one of the bullies to the ground. The other's eyes went wide. "What the hell, man?" The first bully scrambled to his feet. "I just tripped is all. Let's get out of here before the teachers show up." The bullies ran off, leaving Quinn confused. The school bells chimed, signaling it was time for class. The two assholes left, and Quinn was grateful. He quickly toweled off and hurried to his first class of the day, combat training class. When he pulled the door open, everyone snickered at him for being late. But he went to his station and sat down to get started. Quinn placed the VR goggles on and loaded up the training module. Experience points, 80 out of 100. Only 20 points from leveling up, but light years behind the rest of his class. He was the weakest cadet, and no matter how many optional or daily quests he did, he was stuck in dead last. The Dalki, a tentacled green alien race, flickered into view. Quinn took a breath. There was no room for error now. Next to him, a student named Aaron wiped away simulated hordes of the Dalki. The other cadets marveled at Aaron's ice abilities. She shot frosty blasts from her hands and finished the training module in record time. The aliens headed for Quinn at once. He raced across the city looking for anything to use as a weapon. Other cadets had abilities and beast weapons. Quinn had nothing. The aliens drooled as they swarmed him. He momentarily forgot he was in a simulation and remembered the devastation the Dalki invasion wreaked all those years ago. He froze up, paralyzed by fear, as alien tentacles sprang out to grab him. Mobilized by the threat, Quinn swerved aside, grabbed the tentacles with his virtual gauntlets, and pulled with all his strength. A strategy brewed in the back of his mind. He was ready to execute when he felt a pull against the VR headset. Before he could do anything, the simulated training blinked to darkness and the headset was pried off his head. Quinn whipped around, unsurprised to see Riley. He was one of the second years and a large thorn in Quinn's side. "Why are you hogging the training gear?" Riley sneered. "There's no point. Trying to train you is a complete waste of time. You should let the rest of the cadets here train. After all, we're the ones that will be protecting you and the rest of humanity if the Dalki invade again." Quinn reached for the headset. "Give it back!" Riley let Quinn grab the headset, but he did not let go. He felt Quinn pull and began to laugh. "Please don't tell me that's all the strength you've got. You're going to make me cry. Now bugger off already." Quinn pulled harder, but a sheen of silver appeared around Riley's hand, giving him a literal iron grip around the headset. Still, Quinn summoned all his strength and pulled. Riley's hand budged a smidge and his smile disappeared. "I said bugger off." A coat of shiny metal encased Riley's other hand right as he threw a thunderous punch. Quinn crashed onto the training ground floor, a welt instantly forming across his left cheek. A system message popped up over his eyes. Health, 4 out of 5. More of Riley's posse gathered around him. Riley smirked. "Come on, let's give Quinn here a good old superpower Sunday." Quinn tried to fight back, but the other bullies pinned him to the ground. A kaleidoscope of colors shot out of their hands. Mud and water and vines encased Quinn as he screamed and resisted. By the time they were done with him, he was trapped under a pile of colorless sludge, born from the elemental abilities of Riley and his posse. A superpower Sunday. Everyone knew that Riley was one of Momo's lackeys, and Momo was the Duke's nephew, a third-year cadet with a tremendous ability. Getting in Riley's way meant getting in the Duke's way, so none of the other cadets batted an eye. Even the combat instructor turned a blind eye. "Time to train," Riley called out to his posse. "Talentless Talon will be gone tomorrow. Even if he manages not to place last at the Apex trials, they'll be sending his weak ass home. Oh wait, he doesn't even have a home to go back to. They left Quinn Talon tangled in vines, covered in sludge, and crushed under the weight of their abilities. After class, Quinn headed to his mother's grave. His system blared with the same message over and over. Health, 1 out of 5. Replenish your health by eating food. Quinn wished he had a way to silence the useless system. It had done nothing for him so far. He took the train out of the military academy and back into the city, where he arrived at the cemetery. He laid out flowers by his mother's grave. "Today marks 8 years since you left, Mom," Quinn said wistfully. "I miss you every day." His mother had fought valiantly during the height of the Dalki invasion, but she never returned. Quinn didn't know the true extent of his mother's contributions during the war. He could only imagine that she was a war hero, to be buried alongside other fallen soldiers of the war. Quinn thought of the one thing that his mother left him: a dusty old grimoire with bony grooves and a steel lock. Days before joining the military academy, Quinn had managed to open the book. Rather than provide him with an ability, the book flew straight into his chest. When he woke up the next day, a so-called system had been installed within him. Quinn clutched his chest, remembering that fateful night. "Mom, what exactly is this system you left me? I get these messages and statistics, but what help is it to know that I have 10 points of strength and 5 points of health? Every day it gives me a quest, and every day I've been gaining some experience points. But what exactly does any of it mean? I don't know anyone else with a system like this." Quinn's shoulders slumped. Other people are born with powerful abilities. The other cadets have earth powers, ice abilities, and even telekinesis. My roommate has the ability to copy someone else's ability. Some of them are born with it. Others are born into families wealthy enough to purchase powerful ability books. Quinn sighed. "I thought the book you gave me would be an ability book. But instead you left with this system that hasn't given me any powers. I have no idea what's going on with it, but right now, I've got no time left, Mom. The Apex trials are tomorrow, and I'm still 20 points away from leveling up. Will I even become more powerful if I level up? Or will the system messages just get more annoying? I just wish you could give me some answers, Mom. Sometimes I wish you were still here so you could point me in the right direction." As the sun peeked out from behind the clouds, a message came up on the system. "You are being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be halved." Quinn rolled his eyes. It was one of the many strange debuffs the system gave him. He had no idea why sunlight weakened him, but he felt it. His muscles grew weak and he felt like he was dying of thirst. He sluggishly moved his hand to brush the dirt off his mother's tombstone. "I made it to the military academy by placing first in the written test, but this is a place where abilities dictate everything. If I don't place within the top 16 of the military academy tomorrow, they'll expel me. I'll have nowhere left to go, but I won't let that happen. I'll train as hard as I can for tomorrow, Mom, and I'll make you proud." Quinn got up and took the train back to the academy dorms. He had no idea how he was going to do it, but he remembered words his mother always liked to tell him: "Where there's a will, there's a way." Quinn told himself that over and over as he stepped inside the training grounds, put on a headset, and loaded up the Dalki training module. Fighting simulated aliens did not grant him any experience points, but he used it to hone his hand-to-hand combat. Using bare fists in a duel against superpowered humans was like bringing a snowball to a shootout, but Quinn repeated his mother's mantra: "Where there's a will, there's a way." Quinn's heart sank the next morning as he saw who he would be dueling against in the first round. With the Apex trials underway, all the cadets were notified of the tournament bracket. For many, the competition would determine how many levels they'd rise up since they enlisted in the military academy. For Quinn Talon, it would determine whether he still had a place to sleep. Quinn looked at the name next to his: Dan Elmwood. He was a second year and one of Riley's friends. It was just Quinn's luck that he would draw someone with a year's worth of experience in the military academy. He stepped into the military arena, a domed stadium that seated hundreds, elevated ringed around a circular stage where the cadets would face off against each other. He nervously watched Erin handle her opponent with ease. He watched as Riley pummeled his opponent with fists wrapped in metal. Finally, it was his turn. The speakers blared out. Number 64, first-year Quinn Talon versus number 28, second-year Dan Elmwood. Quinn and Dan stepped up onto the stage. As Quinn set his eyes on his opponent, a system message popped up. Combat quest, defeat Dan Elmwood. Reward, 20 experience points, and a random ability. Quinn's chest pounded. This was it. This was the duel of Quinn's lifetime, with everything at stake. Win, and he'll have enough points to level up, lose, and say goodbye to his future. Fight! Dan Elmwood charged forward, confident he could defeat Quinn in a matter of seconds. The second year vanished in a puff of smoke, and Quinn quickly remembered that Dan's ability had something to do with invisibility. Before he could react, Dan appeared right in front of him and threw a hard punch, sending him crashing to the ground. Health, 4 out of 5. Quinn pulled himself up before Dan could land another punch. He watched his opponent vanish in another puff of smoke. Quinn took a step back and attempted to predict his movements, but Dan appeared in front of him, smirking, and once again he was too slow to react. Quinn took a punch right to the gut and keeled over. Health, 3 out of 5. Quinn wheezed, but expected Dan to deliver a finishing blow. He forced his body to tumble to the side, narrowly avoiding what would have been a decisive kick below the waist. Quinn pulled himself up and gathered his breath. All that stood between him and certain expulsion were 3 points of health, but all he had to defeat an opponent who could turn invisible were his 2 fists. Where there's a will, there's a way. Quinn's eyes narrowed as Dan disappeared again with an arrogant smirk. Rather than panic, Quinn closed his eyes. He put all his focus on his hearing, on the laughter and jeering of the arena crowd, on his own heavy breathing, and on Dan's footsteps. There! Quinn swerved around, but not fast enough. An uppercut scraped the side of his jaw, and he tasted iron in his mouth. Health, 2 out of 5. The crowd cheered for Dan Elmwood louder than ever. All the other cadets saw this as a rousing victory. Dan's smile, however, had disappeared. He watched warily as Quinn stood up and issued a taunt. "Come at me, bro." Dan grew beet red. In a puff of smoke, he vanished again. Quinn smiled. Every person's abilities had a specific weakness, and he had figured out Dan. However, Quinn also understood that winning would require taking another punch, which meant he only had one shot to beat Dan. Quinn shut his eyes. He focused on Dan's footsteps racing around the arena, all other noises drowned out. Quinn set his arms down. He relaxed. He was practically inviting the invisible Dan to attack, and that was because he wanted him to. Quinn heard charging footsteps. Behind him, Dan reappeared, ready to swing at the back of Quinn's head when he ducked, swept at Dan's legs, and pounced. "You can only turn invisible when you're moving," Quinn said with a grin. "You have to reappear when you attack. Isn't that right?" Before Dan could answer, Quinn sat on top of him and swung his arms in a relentless flurry until Dan's face looked like a giant plum. Quinn had won. His system message let out a jingle. "You have reached the maximum experience for level 1. Would you like to level up?" Quinn pulled himself off of an unconscious Dan and faced a silent crowd. Riley and the rest of his posse ran towards their fallen friend. Among the third years watching, Momo crossed his arms and glared at the victor. Quinn focused on his system as he hobbled off the stage. "Of course I would like to level up. Why would you even ask that?" he said in a low voice. Another system message appeared. "Once you have leveled up, all changes will be irreversible." "I don't care. I want to level up," Quinn stated. Seconds later, a congratulatory message came up. "You are now level 2. The evolution process will begin now." Before Quinn had a chance to be confused, his body convulsed in a kind of pain he never felt before. Something stabbed at his heart and he fell to the ground, writhing. Cadets gathered to watch in horror. Quinn's heart beat faster than it ever had before. Blood pumped out through arteries and veins at a breakneck speed, sending waves of agony pulsing across his body with each pump of his heart. His mouth opened, but he stifled the urge to scream, afraid it would only terrorize everyone watching and get him eliminated from the Apex trials. Quinn endured the pain for what felt like a lifetime, but in reality, it had only been 5 minutes. When the torture subsided, he raced off to a locker room where he could gather his breath. He had more matches ahead after all. Just because he won against Dan Elmwood did not mean he was safe from expulsion. A message from the system appeared before Quinn's eyes. "Congratulations. You have successfully evolved. You are now a halfling." Quinn knit his brows, reading the message. He had no idea what it meant to be a halfling. He certainly didn't feel any different. The messages continued. Your stats have increased. In addition, you have unlocked a new skill. Level 1, Blood Swipe. Blood Swipe. The skill has a range of 5 feet. It will fire out a red line of energy from the user's hands. To use the skill, the user must use their own blood, causing -1 health point per blood swipe. Quinn couldn't believe his eyes. He had an ability. What a weird skill, he muttered. But nevertheless, leveling up had granted him a new way to fight. Quinn quickly munched down on a banana and some granola bars. His health bar was replenished to 3 out of 5 hearts. Soon it was time to face his second round opponent. More importantly, it was time for Quinn to put the blood swipe skill to use. Quinn stepped back out onto the stage. The speakers boomed. Number 64, first-year Quinn Talon versus number 14, second-year Riley James. Rather than cower at the matchup, Quinn walked confidently to the center of the stage. Riley spat on the ground as he approached. You got lucky beating Dan. He's an imbecile, but he's my imbecile. I'll make sure to put you back in your place after what you did. Quinn did not even blink. This is the top 32 of the Apex trials. I'll show you and the rest of the academy that I belong in the top 16. I belong to stay. Riley belted out in near maniacal laughter. You? Top 16? You're not even really top 32. The trials are just for cadets who want to rank up fast. You can't even begin to imagine how out of your league you are. You have no abilities, no skills. All you have is a dead mother to cry about. Quinn balled his fists. He boiled with anger. Right on cue, the speakers boomed. Fight! Riley's fists wrapped with metal. He charged towards Quinn, who swerved nimbly aside. Ascending to level 2 had increased his agility stat. But it wasn't only that he felt lighter and faster. Running training simulations of the Dalki invasion all night helped his reaction speed. More than anything, however, months of being bullied by Riley and his posse made his attacks predictable. Riley, however, never had the experience of Quinn fighting back. Until now. Quinn understood he had to be on the offensive immediately. He only had 3 health points, and the blood swipe skill cost 1 to use each time. If he were to let Riley hit him twice, he'd never have the chance to attack. So Quinn lunged forward, stopping right as he was within 5 feet of Riley. He opened out his hands and shouted with conviction, "Blood swipe!" A stream of blood gushed out from the center of his palm. Riley's eyes doubled in size as the blood solidified into a beam of energy and cut into Riley's metal arm. Blood spurted out from Riley's wrist as his left hand went limp. At the same time, the blood of the blood swipe skill disintegrated. 2 out of 5 health points remained, but Quinn had gotten the upper hand. "Don't you ever say anything about my mother again," Quinn shouted. "She fought during the Dalki invasion, and spoiled scum like you would know nothing about the sacrifice that takes." Riley was still dumbfounded, mouth agape at Quinn's attack. Blood dribbled from his arm. The blood swipe skill had cut right through, even though he had used his metal armor ability to protect himself. You have a skill," Riley stuttered. His posse in the crowd grew anxious. The thought that Riley could actually lose dawned upon them. Other parts of the arena began to chant Quinn's name. Clearly, Quinn was not the only person Riley and his lackeys terrorized in the academy. Now that Quinn made Riley bleed, everyone saw in him the person they all wanted to be. And Quinn was not done yet. Before Riley had the chance to gather his bearings, Quinn lunged forward again. Riley held up his arms, hardening them to silvery steel, but Quinn smirked. He dropped low and aimed his feet at Riley's shin and watched as the metallic sheen traveled down Riley's arms to his legs. This confirmed Quinn's suspicions. Riley was likely too weak to use metallic armor to encase his whole body. He could only cover a specific area at any given moment. Quinn let his foot crash into the steel shin. He got up quickly and prepared his next attack. A taunt. "You're a brute, Riley. One day you might be formidable, but right now you're just a blowfish, puffing up to look strong." Riley snarled, triggered by Quinn's words. He rushed the first year, but Quinn dodged a metallic fist that would have taken out his 2 remaining health points in a blink. He bided his time, throwing a few jabs and blows, dodging Riley's, and waited for the perfect moment to spring his trap. "There." Quinn's eyes gleamed. "I'll beat you like I did Dan." He sent a fist flying towards Riley's face, ready to pummel it into a rotten plum. Riley's metallic armor traveled up his body, to his face, and that was when Quinn raised his knee, sending it crashing into Riley's nether region. A deafening squeal rang out from the center of the arena. Riley fell to his knees, his voice dying as he fell unconscious. The crowd went quiet for a second, then burst out in cheers for Quinn. Among the cadets who stayed silent, Momo kept a stern gaze on Quinn and walked out of the arena. He walked out to the concourse where he found the Duke of the entire military academy, Uncle. The Duke was a boulder of a man that exuded sheer power, but in the presence of his nephew, he was but a jolly old fella. "You've been doing well in the trials thus far, I hear. Think you'll win?" Momo nodded, maintaining a stoic facade. "I do, but I'd like you to change the seating to put me up against someone next round." The Duke cocked his head. "Oh, there's someone you want to face?" A sinister smile stretched across Momo's face. "There's someone I'd like to kill." He pointed a finger into the arena where the crowd could still be heard chanting a name. "Quinn! Quinn! Quinn!" The victor was on cloud 9, but little did he know he would be going up against a third year next. Quinn Talon's heart continued to pound even after he made it to the locker room. A message came up in his system. "You have defeated Riley James. 20 experience points gained, 20 out of 200. Quinn was now in the top 16. This earned him enough credits to stay in the military academy." He looked at his hands. The blood swipe ability had saved him. The system his mother left him had saved him, right when he needed it the most. Despite being awash with relief, Quinn didn't get ahead of himself. He scarfed down 3 bananas and watched his health replenish to 4 out of 5 hearts. He ate a granola bar and returned to full health. He knew he'd need as many health points if he wanted to continue using his blood swipe ability. Another message, however, came up. "Your hunger grows. You can no longer suppress your need for blood." Before Quinn had the time to react, a military instructor walked in. "You're up, Quinn Talon." Quinn frowned. "What do you mean? I just fought." The instructor shrugged. "The third round is beginning, and you've been seeded against the first seed." Quinn blanched. "What? What are you talking about? Please follow me into the arena, now." Quinn stepped into the Dome Stadium in time for the speakers to announce the next match. Number 64, first-year Quinn Talon versus number 1, third-year Momo Takahashi. Quinn couldn't believe his ears. There must be something wrong. But when he looked at the stage, Momo was already standing there, arms crossed, eyes closed, waiting for Quinn to show up. Quinn walked forward with a frog in his throat. Before he could even prepare his heart, his speakers boomed, "Fight!" Momo opened his eyes. He stood nearly 2 heads taller than Quinn. His biceps alone were the size of Quinn's thighs. He was likely 95% muscle, and his stoic gaze filled with killing intent. "Wait!" Quinn stammered. This wasn't a fair fight. He was up against a third year. He was up against the strongest contestant in the Apex trials. Someone had clearly set him up for failure. Or perhaps something even worse. Momo reached behind his back and pulled out a whip. Flames spread from Momo's hand to the tip of the whip. Quinn realized what this was. A soul weapon. Beast weapons were the common weapons used by most cadets. They were found following the Dalki invasion as weapons crafted on advanced planets. But soul weapons were in a league of their own. Only when a cadet's weapon training matured did a soul weapon form from within the user's body. Quinn was about to find out just how destructive soul weapons were. Momo raced forward, cracking his flaming whip out. Quinn tried to dodge, but the whip lashed out in the exact direction he shifted his body. Quinn yelped out in pain. The edge of the whip licked his shoulder, tearing through his shirt and searing his collarbone. 3 out of 5 health points. The attack had taken 2 of his health points, just like that. Quinn braved the pain, but another system message appeared. You can no longer suppress your need for blood. Your health point will decrease by 1 for every hour you do not drink blood. Drinking blood will replenish health points and grant you stat points for upgrades. Quinn frowned. He had no idea what to make of this, but he felt his body become sluggish, even after eating 3 bananas earlier. His muscles weakened. The pain from the shoulder gash hurt more than he could have imagined. The thought of blood used to make him nauseous, but now he suddenly had a twisted craving to drink it. Momo sent the whip flying out again. Quinn tried to swerve, but once again he walked straight into the direction of the whip. Somehow, Momo was predicting exactly how Quinn was going to dodge. The flaming whip wrapped around his neck. The flames burned his skin and the whip tightened, strangling him. Quinn choked and flailed, but he could not free himself. "You are burning. 2 out of 5 health points." He grasped at the whip but seared his fingertips. "You are burning. 1 out of 5 health points." Quinn's vision grew spotty. He grew lightheaded. He saw Momo walk calmly towards him and crouch by his side. "Die, you little vermin. Go back to where the sun doesn't shine." Quinn's last health point blinked. He was dying, and no one was coming to save him. The crowd had gone silent. The only thing he could hear was his system's message. Quinn tried to free his arms, but Momo's grip was too strong. If he couldn't bring himself to hit Momo, how would he save himself? How on earth was he supposed to find blood amidst this carnage? As Quinn's thoughts cleared, he found himself fading towards unconsciousness. He thought about his mother. At last, they would be reunited in the afterlife. "I'm sorry, Mom, I tried." But right before passing out, Quinn heard a murmur in the crowd. Momo looked up, confused. "Who the hell is opening the roof?" Quinn saw the gigantic roof of the arena opening up, letting the moonlight illuminate the ground. It was a full moon night, and it wasn't just any moon. It was a blood moon. As the moonlight fell on Quinn, he felt a jolt of electricity run through his body. Momo and the rest of the crowd couldn't believe what they saw happening to Quinn. The system message chimed again.
"Congratulations! You have unlocked Blood Moon Fatality."
What happened next? To find out more, listen to My Vampire System only on the Pocket FM app. Click the download link below the video and start listening for free right now.